2 past 5. I think we can start now.
Sure.
So, well, hello and welcome everyone to Kitaabi Baatein. I am Abhishek, also known as Wale Bhaiya. My guest today is a noted journalist and author, Juggi Bhasin ji. And before we start talking about his career as a journalist, his books, I would like to give you a brief introduction of Juggi sir. So, Juggi Bhasin is one of the first TV journalists in India. He has many landmark coverages to his credit, including the demolition of the Babri Masjid and the insurgency in Kashmir. He's a prolific author, has written many bestsellers, thrillers, and his latest one is Those Who Wait. He also runs a successful social media platform called the CAA Show, which analyzes current political and social issues. He's also a reputed theatre actor. So I must say a multifaceted personality. That's how I would like to say from journalism. That too in those days in 1980s and theater, and now you are writing since close to a decade. I think your first book came in 2012, if I'm not wrong. So, so my first question, and in fact, when I was discussing this with some of my friends that I'm interviewing someone, very senior journalist, and he was a journalist in 1980s, and so the question which many of my friends and family actually wanted to understand, and I also was curious, how were those days when you started, when there was only one channel, Doordarshan, and the media, the news channels were into giving news in a very sensible manner, in a very calm and composed manner. How do you, if you like to recollect something from those past days?
First of all, Abhishek, thank you so much. बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया आपका कि आपने मेरे को आपके चैनल पे बुलवाया है. And really honored and privileged to be on your wonderful channel. Thank you so much. तो ये पुराने जो दिनों की बातें हैं and all the times which we had, those are very different. The first batch we were trained at the Film and Television Institute. We joined Doordarshan News as correspondents. See, I'll be honest, in the political sphere, there was a certain line we could not cross because at the end of the day, Russian was a government agency.
Yes.
But what we need to make up for were these different non-political stories. Ab jaise Babri Masjid also is a hugely political story, but you couldn't ignore it. So, like I was the first person there with my camera team, even before BBC, Track, all these people. So we got all the shots, everything. The famous shots है वो हमारे camera team के लिए मतलब.
Okay.
I was the first person to interview the North Korean Supremo at that time. जो आज का के grandfather जो था, he was the and Kashmir के बहुत coverages थे. So those times were different. But when अब जैसे आप if you are following the news nowadays, तो अभी कल परसों ही एक लिस्ट आई है of 14 anchors who have been boycotted by the alliance.
The India alliance.
तो ठीक है, अब आजकल तू मैं ज्यादा हो गई है, फर्क यही है. There is not much of a difference. I still feel the fundamental of news are the same.
Yes.
They haven't changed.
Right.
You should try to be objective, to be fair, and to concisely ask news DGA. You're right, we were far more calm. And later also I came back as the lead anchor for Lok Sabha Television, which is a new television. At that time. So ये सब करा है, but yes, you're right, the title changed completely now.
Right.
And everybody says more restraint and calmness, जो आजकल नहीं दिखाई देता मतलब.
Right. And so one of the things, as you mentioned, the objectivity, and sadly we are seeing a kind of end of objectivity because of course times change, many things change, the way news is being delivered changed. Today we read news on our mobiles, maybe not that much on TV, some would do on TV and all, but objectivity is something we believe is in danger. It's no longer, and in fact many journalists, I won't say all, but many journalists are very openly, they show their bias that okay, we support a particular political party, and many those who do not explicitly say so, they also in some way or other support some political party or some political ideology. And so objectivity, as we say, is missing. So how do you see this particular point of, journalists, taking sides? And even it is said that, I think Josie Joseph said that the successful journalists today are those who are kind of, involved more into the politics. They are the brokers, political brokers and all. So how do you see that allegation?
I completely agree with you, Abhishek, and it's very unfortunate because see, I belong to the old school of journalism, and I'll tell you what is this old school. Old school doesn't necessarily mean being old in age.
Yes.
It means that you have a conservative point of view, and my point of view is this: a journalist, to my mind, should be like a judge.
Yes.
A judge is not supposed to show his personal biases or opinions or whatever. So they will give judgments which will probably go this way or that way, but they are supposed to be impartial.
Yes.
And similarly, I think journalists and also senior bureaucrats should be impartial. Unfortunately, maybe in real life this is not happening.
Right.
Everybody has to get some side or the other. And the worst thing is that not only are people taking sides, they are blatantly, talking about it as if, it's like a victory badge which they are wearing.
Yes, exactly.
What they don't realize is that political conviction आपकी कुछ और हो सकती है, मेरी कुछ और हो सकती है. That's absolutely okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's our job, or rather, when I used to be practicing journalism, it's the job of the journalist to bring both sides, both opinions, and show it in a dispassionate manner without my own biases entering into the debate. So that has gone out of the window.
That's very true. And I remember in Doordarshan days, I even remember my parents or some elderly saying in the family, when there was news on Doordarshan, there was only news. Today the channels are backed by big money. They are listed on the stock exchanges. They have to, make money, of course, to give value to their shareholders. And of course, they're making money by practically advertisements and everything. So of course, it has become a business rather than, a pillar of democracy, which it still is, but that business dimension is very much there. And of course, whereas
if you talk to doctors and cardiologists and all that, they'll say advice करते हैं लोगों को please ज़्यादा news मत देखा करिए, because it's not good for both for your mental well-being as well as for your heart. So it's come to that level, it's that bad.
Yes, of course. I mean, and there are jokes being circulated that people with high BP are advised not to watch news channels so as to keep their blood pressure under control. And this is actually very much happening. I remember in one of the conversations which Barkha Dutt was having with Arun Shoriji, is that how do you see the political scenario in which the political ideologies, your friends are being decided on the basis of the political party they support, the ideology they support to. How do you see this? And yes, he echoed similar views as you are, that, perhaps it's to an extent you can say it's the journalist blame as well, who are, showcasing these things. And even the people themselves are perhaps getting too much particular about something. I mean, when we were kids, it really didn't matter to us who voted for Congress, who supported BJP or whatever. We were friends and we are still. But sadly, yes, that is definitely changing. So my next... Yeah, please.
During the emergency, there was a very famous line which was used. I'm forgetting who used that particular line, but the line was, when we were asked to bend, हम पूरा गिर गए, मतलब जमीन पे.
Right.
मतलब किसी को जब कहा कि थोड़ा सा बेंड हो जाइए, तो बेंड नहीं हुए, पूरे लोग गिर गए. Unfortunately, that is true even today. See, all these journalists who side with either side of the dispensation, whether it's the Congress or the BJP or whatever, and they are flaunting it, that, we are talking about this is the right party or whatever. See, I call that mediocrity. I don't call that a higher standard of journalism, because in a higher level of journalism, you have to battle it out. आपको biases को side में रखना पड़ता है, और आपको you have to go towards what is called the unvarnished truth. That is the job. मगर आप एक साइड लेके बैठ जाएंगे शुरू से ही, तो आपको सच्चाई क्या है?
No, of course.
So it's compromise. It's like your bosses, and your bosses are your corporate bosses. Exactly. Who are in the playbook of some party or the other.
Right.
So they have given you a character. तो आपने जिसे हिंदी में कहते हैं कि आपने कौन सी तीर मार ली है. You have achieved nothing by doing these things. Yeah.
Yeah. So coming to your books, as you know, it's not at all uncommon. In fact, many journalists write books, and many of them have actually written some very best-selling books. I wanted to understand from news, which is dealt more into politics and society. How did you move into writing, thrillers, political thrillers, or murder mysteries? So how did that move happen?
See, that's a very important question, and let me explain to. In fact, I hope there are a lot of young listeners also out there, aspiring writers. जर्नलिस्ट क्या करते हैं कि जर्नलिस्ट जो होते हैं एक पर्टिकुलर फॉर्म ऑफ राइटिंग होती है उसको हम कॉपी कहते हैं.
Yes.
Whether you are doing it in newspapers or whether even if you're doing it in a television studio, you are producing copy. You see a television report, it is about 1 minute, 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes. इससे ज़्यादा कोई report नहीं होती.
Right.
Okay? उसका एक particular format होता है. There is a particular way you produce that copy. A lot of, I don't want to mention names, but a lot of senior journalists, a lot of other people, what they have done is they have written a number of books. But what they do is, वो उसी copy को compile कर लेते हैं तो हमने जी किताब लिख दी. In my definition, that is not writing, or that is not creative writing. Creative writing is a completely different baby as compared to journalistic copy writing.
Absolutely.
So, I think what I learned when I was switching over from journalism to creative writing or writing my books is you have to literally disabuse yourself of a particular format and start thinking on a different level altogether. Your writing, your syntax, your narration, everything has to change.
Right.
अगर आप वही चीज प्रेडिक्ट कर दोगे तो फिर तो creative writing कहाँ से होगा? So that is, I believe, is a very, very important factor which people ignore when they are writing books who are transiting from journalism into creative writing. So ये चीज को all the out there, they should be very cognizant. उनको ये चीज को हमेशा याद रखनी चाहिए. ये बड़ा important है. और उसमें बहुत discipline चाहिए अभी तक. You need a complete reorientation of the way you are writing, of the way you are thinking. So it's a tough process, but it's somebody else.
Of course. It is. And within the thrillers and suspense novels and all, how difficult you think is defining characters? Because many of the thrillers which we see, they are defined one by their plot. Of course, the plot has to be gripping, of course, because only then a reader will take interest. And there is usually thrillers which we see, worldwide, the famous mystery novels and all. Characters are very important, especially the one who is solving. So we have famous detective like Sherlock Holmes, Hercule Poirot, and they kind of defined the novels. They became the brand for the authors. How important do you think the characters are in mystery novels?
See, in a thriller, I'll tell you why I prefer thrillers. Because to my mind, thrillers are the ultimate genre where you can bring a combination of both narrative and character to it. सिर्फ इसमें एक murder mystery नहीं होती. लोग सोचते हैं thrillers are about murders and crime and this and that. Not really. See, you are literally going into the depths of the human soul. You're trying to understand the psychological makeup of people, and these are people, usually people on the edge. ये normal लोग नहीं in thrillers. A lot of people are, they are characters which you might have seen in real life, but they are not normal people.
Yeah.
Now, what is required for that? Two things are required for that. One is a first-rate narration or a narrative.
Absolutely.
Your plot, what we generally call a plot. But the more important thing to my mind is the character development. Because ultimately the characters have to stick in your mind. अब मैं एक example देता हूँ आपको. This is a famous book which a lot of people have read, The Murder of the Orient Express by Agatha Christie. Version of movies भी बन चुकी हैं. अब तो book के अंदर there are at least 10-11 characters. But the beauty of the book is that every character is different from the other. Those characters in your mind.
Absolutely.
So it's a combination of both character development and your narrative, your plot lines, and your psychological insights which you bring into that. So it's a combination of at least 2 or 3 major elements which go into the making of what we call a thriller.
A thriller, certainly. And so in the latest book, Those Who Wait, which is, you can say, political thriller. And I noticed this in your books, you emphasize a lot on the characters as well as the situations, everyone can relate to. It's more contemporary, as to say. So you really, take this thing into consideration that it should be contemporary so that, people can relate it to the events. This is one of the ways, I guess, you write, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. I don't write historical fiction. I write what is called contemporary reality fiction. That's the word I use. Reality fiction का मतलब ये है कि these are not characters जिसको आप ABC से आप identify कर लेंगे, but there is some element of truth in these characters from real characters. So if let's say I'm writing on the Prime Minister, not necessarily it's a Prime Minister which you know, but it might be a combination of 2 or 3 Prime Ministers we are all aware of. तो उसके elements मेरे character में होंगे. So I do what is called reality fiction. For me, this is very exciting because I like contemporary events. We live in a very polarizing world. We live in a very dynamic world. इतना कुछ हो रहा है. So if I can bring all the elements, especially in our country, in my books, that is why I go for contemporary reality fiction genre. That is for me very exciting.
And as you mentioned contemporary, so my next question was actually again on Those Who Wait. How is it like, writing a political thriller in an India which is, politically very charged, and especially elections are coming next year. And, I guess ever since the advent of social media, everyone is a political analyst now. And everyone has a very, very strong opinion on, whom to vote, what for vote. So how do you see, writing a political thriller an year before elections, and that to an environment wherein it's just politics?
So that's a very good question, because इसमें danger क्या होता है कि अगर आप बहुत ज्यादा political thriller आप कर रहे हैं, तो आपके बुक में या अगर आप एक न्यूज पे अगर आप एक रिपोर्ट दे रहे हैं, उसमें फर्क क्या है?
Exactly.
So the difference is that you have to elevate your plot from a political thriller plot to something larger, to something bigger. So in this, obviously, when you read the book, one will realize that it is about not only about the politics and about what is going on in the book, but it is also about the larger destiny of the entire country itself.
Yes.
एक फ्रेंच टर्म होता है, उसे कहते हैं हम raison d'être. Raison d'être का मतलब होता है reason for existence. So हमारा reason, हम क्यों exist करते हैं, हमारी country क्यों exist करती है, prime minister क्यों होते हैं, some heroes क्यों होते हैं, villains क्यों होते हैं. So the book answers larger questions. So right. The political part of it is just the base. Yes. I built on the base and I create a big structure, and the plot is then it becomes a huge plot by itself. So that's the political thrillers. Because अगर आपने वही जो politics चल रहे हैं उसी को आपने किताब में लिख दिया, तो that's going to be interesting for anyone. Nobody will pick it up.
Of course. So as you write, usually, when it comes to books, you write thrillers. So other than, you must have read any favorite authors or any favorite genres, of course it is there, but any favorite authors you have, whom you read a lot?
I'll be honest with you. मैं पढ़ता हूँ मगर इतना ज़्यादा आजकल नहीं, because a lot of my time goes in writing by itself, and therefore I don't that much of time to read authors. I used to be a very prolific reader. थोड़ा कम हो गया है. Plus, there's a lot of good cinema also to watch and everything. So, but India में तो मेरे हमेशा 3 favorite authors रहे हैं. I don't mind telling you their names. The first, obviously, is Khushwant. I still feel Khushwant Singh used to write very well, simple but very effective. D.S. Naipaul, I think, was a great author. I really have liked his books. And then there is another author which I think a lot of youngsters, the young people should read, and not too much is talked about him, but he was, to my mind, a brilliant author called Manohar Malgomkar.
Yes.
So he please pick up some of his books, and I would advise people to read. He's a great author. I'm not honest with you, impressed with too much the likes of Arundhati Roy and Salman Rushdie. I'm sorry, I don't like that kind of stuff which they write.
Yeah.
And but foreign authors में कई हैं. I like a lot of Scandinavian fiction.
Oh.
Scandinavian thriller writers are among the best in the world. They're really, really good, you know.
Wonderful.
And then there is this gentleman called John Lee Carr, a famous man. और उनकी मेरे को एक लाइन बड़ी पसंद है. वो he said somewhere, maybe in a symposium or somewhere, he said, and he was I think 88 at that time. He said, I will continue to produce one book every year in my life, and that is my motto also. कि जब तक हम हैं हमें अपनी किताबें लिखते रहना चाहिए as much as possible. Right.
How do you see the current space for Indian writing, which we understand that there are many writers coming up, especially for thrillers and suspense? Many established writers, we see. Whom do you see, or how do you see this overall space of suspense or thriller writing in India at this stage? And do you think it will get better? Will there be more writers, or how?
जो thriller writers in especially I'm talking of English, मुझे हिंदी का इतना नहीं पता. चाहे मेरी हिंदी काफी ठीक है, मगर मैंने हिंदी के ज्यादा नहीं पढ़े हुए. English में I'll tell you what the problem क्या कहाँ पर आ रही है. This particular genre I think is struggling, and it is struggling because अभी तक 2-3 genre ही चल रहे हैं. एक तो mythology में लोग किताबें उठा लेते हैं.
Absolutely.
में पहले उठाते थे, वो भी वैसे बहुत कम हो गया. मतलब somebody like a Durjoy, for instance, used to sell in lakhs.
Yeah.
Even that has come down. Thrillers में problem क्या है, and rightly so also, because there is a huge market for thrillers in India. All the people who read thrillers prefer to read foreign authors.
Yeah, true. That's true.
They will pick up a David Baldacci, they will pick up a Daniel Silva before they even start thinking of your books, and I don't blame them. And I'm going to make a very controversial statement, because unfortunately, a lot of thriller writers in India, they just do not write well. I'm sorry to say that. Snobbish here, और थोड़ा मेरे को ऐसा लग रहा है कि जैसे कि मैं arrogant बात कर रहा हूँ, but I'm being very truthful. And see, and the comparison is there. Why won't somebody, even today, people pick up Alistair MacLean. They will pick up a Desmond. These are ये 60s, 70s की 80s की किताबें हैं उनकी. अभी भी लोग पढ़ेंगे. Because so I think the first thing we Indian writers have to do is to improve our narrative abilities.
No, that's true.
Very, very important. Before we even think of plot and character and storylines and all that, we need to first improve our English before we are writing good English thrillers, crime novels, geopolitical thrillers, whatever. Because unfortunately, जो मैंने एक दो पढ़े हैं, I've been very disappointed. And I'm not saying that बहुत great चीज हो, but I still feel you have to pay a lot of attention to your language, to what you write, to compete with the best in the world.
Of course. And one thing I've noticed while speaking to many authors, and they say that, one of the reasons is that writing on its own, I mean, it cannot be a full-time job for many people. There are exceptions, of course. And they, in a way, are dependent either on huge sales, which again, not everyone can command, say, it's like an Amish Tripathi or a Chetan Bhagat. And another is that, one of the authors I was talking to, she said this, one of her novels is being made in a movie. And she said that is one of the ways, authors get supported. So that kind of support system, do you think, to an extent, is missing in India? And only people are waking up to the reality now that, you can make movies.
Very important question you've asked. And give me some time to explain this in a little in detail. पहली बात तो बिल्कुल सही है. I will tell your readers that if you think you can make a living out of writing, then you are sadly mistaken. Yes. You mentioned that there might be only one Chetan Bhagat or an Amish Tripathi who have done well for themselves. But even there, by the way, Chetan Bhagat is an investment banker first, and then he is a writer later. Right. So it's not simple. I also, honestly, my economic sources, I have other avenues, so they were taken care of, and I could branch into writing full time because I can afford it.
Yeah.
To be very honest with you,
Yes.
तो ये चीज आपको देखनी पड़ेगी पहले कि अगर आपके सोर्सेज हैं कुछ हैं बिकॉज राइटिंग से अभी भी मुझे नहीं लगता है सो इजी टू मेक मनी
No,
नंबर
of course.
नंबर टू this OTT thing is very important. Let me also explain in little depth. No doubt, there are a lot of writers who have got these OTT contracts or whatever. कि जी OTT platform ने हमें sign कर दिया. The real picture, the real story is this कि 10 में से जो sign होते हैं उसमें सिर्फ 2 के जो OTT के books आते हैं, बाकी 8 sign हो जाते हैं, उनको थोड़ा advance भी दे देते हैं ये OTT वाले, but they are never made into any serials or films. And the reason is very simple because the OTT platform has the thing कि हाँ इनको sign up कर दो. We will think about it later.
Right.
So 10 out of 2 cases actually see the light of the day in terms of serials which are made. So if you're depending on OTT, that again is a mistake. It happens, wonderful, but if you're relying only on OTT to get you some money, it's a risky gamble. That's what I'm trying to do.
Of course. I seem to remember one of the largest selling Hindi crime fiction authors, Surinder Mohan Pathak ji. He has like more than 300 books to his credit, and he mentioned in his interviews that one of the drawbacks with the crime fiction suspense novels which we wrote in plenty was that if we talk about making them into movies, is that the rerun value is not that high, at least in India. And foreign they market it well. So he said that on the same novel, movies are made even after 20 years. People don't knew the plot yet they watched it. That aspect he said is missing in India because many people, in fact, I am one of his readers, and I asked him in a literature fest last year that how come no movie was made on your novels? You had many best-selling series and characters to your name, Sunil, Vimal, and they were a household name, you can say, in 80s, 70s, and all. And he said no one actually approached me. That's the honest answer. No one approached me and said, and once he got an offer, which was, I must say, was a shame because his Vimal series was like perhaps the most largest selling ever, and he was what you call peanuts. It was the price which was offered, and it's really shameful for someone who is sold record number of books. So, and yeah, as I said, one cannot be too much dependent, and perhaps the filmmakers themselves may not be realizing the worth or the value which they can get. So yes, difficult at times for authors, and yeah, but many times great content may get lost or may remain only in books. So that's
Absolutely. Patanjali, of course, is so well known. Absolutely, you're right. But एक aspect और है अभिषेक, which I would like to tell your listeners and viewers. See, एक और चीज क्या हो गई है आजकल अब जो फिल्म मेकिंग हो रही है both in OTT and in films. This kind of filmmaking is what is called collaborative filmmaking. यानी कि people जा रहे हैं for OTT. Sometimes you will find a single writer who has written those scripts, but very often it is not a single. वो आपका एक थोड़ा plot ले लेंगे अगर आपको ले भी देते हैं, give you the money also. But there will be a team of 3 or 4 writers who will then go over the entire thing, and by the time the final script comes out, you will not even recognize what you have written.
Exactly.
So this is the new approach: collaborative script writing, collaborative filmmaking. तो ठीक है OTT we should all try and everything, but अगर हम hopes OTT पे लगा के बैठे हैं, then the purpose of writing is destroyed.
True.
You have to write for the sake of writing, for writing a
right.
That for me is a message which I want to give to everyone, because the moment it's like somebody enters into the National School of Drama कि हम तो थिएटर करना चाहते हैं. अब बाद में पता चला वो थिएटर इसलिए करना चाहते हैं क्योंकि वो बॉलीवुड को देख रहे हैं कि मेरे को फिल्म में offer कर पाए. So it is the same thing. So if you do that, you will not succeed.
No,
let it come. Let your book be very well received, and you negotiate because at the end of the day, if your book is powerful, if you are convinced of everything, then when the OTT comes to you, then you negotiate. Okay, I don't want changes like this. I want this pattern. Right. You can do that. So it's a very tightrope walk वो आपको चलना पड़ता है, मगर आप OTT के चक्कर में people forget the fundamentals of writing are totally different.
Absolutely. I have to admit here, I have talked about this into many authors, both on Insta and in private, and this is the most relevant and sensible answer I have ever got. Because everyone says, yes, there should be, this is so important for authors, or some say that no, it's not the material which can be made. This, I must say, is the most sensible answer I have ever got. So,
लोगों को पता है अनफॉर्चुनेटली, और जब आप आपके मीडियम से मे बी दिस अदर थिंग कैन आल्सो गो आउट इज वी शुड नॉट इक्वेट प्राइड कि हमें ओटीटी का कॉन्ट्रैक्ट मिल गया इसलिए हम राइटर बन गए आज.
एग्जैक्टली
प्राइड इन द फैक्ट दैट आई एम अ राइटर बिकॉज़ ऑफ माय बुक, चाहे उसको 50 लोग पढ़े या 5000 पढ़े या 5 लाख पढ़े.
एब्सोल्युटली.
And one more thing I must say to people is that first please write for yourself before you write for the whole world. अगर आप को खुश कर सकते हैं, if you are happy with your own writing, then the whole world like your whatever you have written, you know. And OTT सबसे बाद में आता है. मगर अगर आप इसी चक्कर में पढ़ेंगे कि end game वो है हमारा, you can't succeed. Then it's difficult.
No, that's very true. So
I'll give you an example. Chetan Bhagat. His most famous novel that IIT वाला
5 point something.
5 point something. अब उसकी जो फिल्म 3 Idiots.
Yeah.
Now that film, and we all know there were running battles between the author and between the, but the final version of that film is completely different actually.
Absolutely.
They changed the basic, ठीक है उसमें basics हैं उस novel के, but they changed it completely.
Absolutely.
I'm sure he'll give you the same answer that I'm not happy at all with what they did with my book.
Yes.
So, sir, आप कमानी है तो फिर आप बॉस आप गलत लाइन में हो, फिर आप किसी और लाइन में जाओ, ये
No, I completely agree. And as we talked about Hindi novels, we talked about Pathak ji. Do you think like more and more people are writing in English, and interestingly, like many are reading in English? In fact, very often we say that there was a pre-Chetan Bhagat era and post-Chetan Bhagat era. He was one of the pioneers of making English writing accessible to the common man, things like that. But do you think that more English novel is like a roadblock to more people reading? I mean, if people write more in regional languages or Hindi and other languages, do you think there will be more readers, or you think English is here to just dominate like it is currently dominating?
Not at all. English is certainly not here to dominate. In fact, I will narrate a very interesting incident. Maybe आपको शायद पता होगा, but I'm sure a lot of your viewers को नहीं पता होगा. There was this gentleman called Gulshan Nanda.
Yes.
So Gulshan Nanda used to write these small novels. जैसे he was the Indian version of James Handley Chase. तो उनके बड़े रूपी novels होते थे. अब वो गुलशन नंदा के नॉवल से हिंदी में लिखते थे. वो उनके नॉवल्स में कई फिल्में बन चुकी हैं. Not one film, but at least I think 7-8 films have been made on this novel. छोटे-छोटे novels होते थे, but they used to be this version of हिंदी में crime. पाठक जी से पहले गुलशन नंदा होते थे.
Yeah, absolutely.
उनके कई फिल्में बन चुकी हैं.
Yes.
So very successful. So the point which I'm making is nothing to do with English or Hindi. See, at the end of the day, you have to see it from the Bollywood person's, the producer and the director's point of view. He needs a crackling story. He needs a good plot. He needs something that can be put out on the screen. अब वो उसको इंग्लिश वाला दे दे, हिंदी वाला दे दे, रीजनल लैंग्वेजेस. अब रीजनल लैंग्वेजेस के जो आजकल प्लॉट्स हैं, they are far better than anything which you see both on either in English or in Hindi.
True.
Something from the south, you know, in terms of ये आपकी जो फिल्म है दृश्यम जो so the entire plot line is amazing actually.
True.
It's a crime movie in that sense. So there are I think 2 or 3 versions of Drishyam now. So all I'm saying is you should not get too worried about कि English ऊपर जा रहा है, हिंदी ऊपर जा रहा है, ये ऊपर नीचे हो रहा है. ये सब चलता रहता है. This doesn't make sense. Unfortunately क्या हुआ है, I was talking to a very senior editor some time back. हिंदी में क्या हुआ है कि हिंदी में ना एक अनफॉर्चुनेटली हिंदी लिटरेचर में एक प्रॉब्लम हो गई थी बीच में कि ईगोस लोगों की बहुत ज्यादा हो गई थी. So everybody was cancelling each other and all that, and therefore it actually went down.
Right.
But I personally believe जैसे कहते हैं कि बहुत ही रोमांचकारी जो फिक्शन जो है आपको हिंदी में भी मिलती है मतलब
True.
so
That's right.
you should definitely as much as possible try and read both Hindi and English दोनों भी आप पढ़ सकते हैं.
True.
I would recommend that strongly to people. And in any case हमारी जो English होती है that is an Indianized kind of English.
True.
We are not doing the Queen's English out here, you know.
That's true.
So, yeah. So I don't particularly hold this thing कि एक language का ऊपर जा रहा है नीचे जा रहा है. I think at the end of the day, a good plot, a good story, that is all that matters.
No, I agree. And so, talking about one of your novels, The Terrorist. So you picked the theme of a Hindu and a Muslim, and the Muslim man, the injustices he faced, and he eventually went to the side of the terrorist. And unfortunately, even in real life, we have seen many such examples. But how do you, as an author, sees this? What is happening is he justified in what he's doing, or is it really the pressure, or is it he's still wrong? I mean, despite the injustices, and how do you see that?
See, obviously, nobody can justify terrorism. But what I did in that first novel, in The Terrorist, I traced the journey of Murad.
Yeah.
Murad was a terrorist in that book, and Murad is not some ordinary person. He's an engineer, and he faces discrimination at work. और उसकी series of incidents उसके साथ होते हैं where he feels that his back is against the wall, and unfortunately he's misled. He goes over to the other side to Pakistan. So the objective of that particular novel really was to highlight socio-political, economic factor situation in the country. अब कई जो आजकल जो terrorism में भी अभी भी जो चल रहा है मतलब, and this I used to cover even during my journalism days. You talk to a lot of terrorists, and मैंने तो जब मैं जाता था तब हमने बात करने को मिलता था हम लोग इन लोगों से. See, a lot of them are not joining this because they want to do it. They are led by a certain compulsion, or they are misguided,
Exactly.
or there is no one to rather guide them. That is more important. Right में जो influences होते हैं वो सही नहीं है. To put them on the proper path. All of us, when we are growing, we are all a little vulnerable to various. अब आजकल के जो challenges हैं, social media के, internet के, there are different kind of challenges. So if there is somebody not to guide you, you can easily be misled. Similarly, in the case of terrorism also, if there is nobody to guide you, then the chances of people susceptible to these things, वो possibilities बढ़ जाती हैं. So basically, in that novel, I was mirroring the realities which are going on in our society. But that is justify terrorism, not at all. I'm a complete nationalist. I completely, for me, nationalism is very, very important. But at the same time, you have to understand both the psychological element of why these youngsters pick up the gun, so that they can be brought back from that particular path.
No, definitely. And one more question, and I have another one about your book. So one is, as you know, very senior journalist, and as we discussed, you are in business since 1980. There's a lot of talk of lack of, say, freedom of speech and all currently under the regime. How do you see that as someone who is there since the Doordarshan days? Is there actually lack of freedom of speech? Are people afraid to tell the truth, or is it it's overhyped? What's your take?
Abhishek, I don't buy this argument, and I'll tell you why. Because I have lived through. See, I'm 62 years old, right? और मैंने कांग्रेस की regimes पहले देखी है. अब ये बीजेपी की चल रही है, तो अब बीजेपी की regime में लोग कहते हैं कि अब freedom of expression नहीं है. I have worked in the government also. I have worked with Doordarshan News. जो उस time curbs होते थे हमारे time में, and not only in Doordarshan News, I'm talking of overall. और उस time जो restrictions होती थी, you think it was easy reporting at that time? People have either very short memories or they mislead you. I'm not saying this government is better or that government was not better. That's not the point. All governments are equal. In India, even today, all governments try and to some degree control the press.
Yes.
And it's universal. And it's not only the central government. People are mistaken. State government में आपको ज़्यादा strictness दिखाई
Right.
देगी. आप state government में आप state government के खिलाफ आप लिख के दिखाइए कुछ.
No,
और
true.
उसको पता भी नहीं चलेगा आप कब आपके ऊपर FIR होगी और कब आप जेल के अंदर बैठे होंगे. So ये तो this is all these are all vested interest. खत्म हो गया expression. See, I have written this book, and people who have read this book, there are a lot of controversial passages in the book.
Yeah.
But मेरे को I have full faith in myself. I have full faith in the government. I have full faith in the judiciary. और मैं तो लोगों को यही कहूँगा कि आप प्लीज अपने आप को रिस्ट्रिक्ट मत करिए. जो आप लिखना चाहते हैं खुल के लिखिए, डरिए मत किसी चीज से. And don't get into this this propaganda which keeps going on कि खत्म हो गया, हम कुछ नहीं लिख सकते, हम बोल नहीं सकते. ऐसा कुछ भी नहीं है. जो पहले 30 साल पहले था वो अभी भी है. वही सब अभी भी है. पहले भी वही challenges थे. There is nothing different, honestly speaking.
Great. Cool. So one last question, I will open it to the audience then in case any of them want to ask. So all those who are watching, if you have any questions, you can please write in the comment box and ask sir to answer that. Sir, I know it's too early to ask, but have you decided about which book to write next?
Very clear. I am already on the path of writing my next book. See, next month I'm off to the US. So हमारा बेटा US में है, वहीं पे he works there. तो both my wife and I we are going for a month. तो मैं अपना पूरा plot everything जो है मैं वहीं पे बैठ के आराम से लिखूंगा. But this time I'm moving away from geopolitical reality fiction. I want to write. I'm writing a novel on the corporate world.
Oh.
So काफी different है, very interesting, very different kind of genre. So, but उसके बारे में ज़्यादा नहीं बोल सकता. But hopefully,
sure.
Yeah. So I'll be doing that. And I just want to tell your viewers that the most important thing in life is कि आप अपने passion को follow करिए, अपने idea को follow करिए. Don't get restricted by anything. People build up these invisible walls around them. कि ये हो रहा है, वो हो रहा है, कुछ मत करिए. Please follow your idea. Editing जो भी है, ये सब चीजें बाद में हो जाती हैं.
Of course.
बेधड़क होके लिखिए, right in full flow with full passion. That to me is the advice to all young writers, and you will feel very happy. See, at the end of the day, Abhishek, writing is हमने बात कर ली, आपने और मैंने बात करी कि पैसे से बने ना बने, मगर जो इसमें आपको सेटिस्फैक्शन मिलती है ना नॉवल लिखते हैं, जो आपको एक सेंस ऑफ पर्पस मिलता है, वो दुनिया में इट्स अनबिलीवेबल. नथिंग मैचेस इट.
Of course.
For me, that is the main objective of writing.
Of course. I agree. The passion and that sense of satisfaction is, of course, very important.
Yeah.
Be it anything, and when it comes to writing, of course, writing for yourself is, I think, that's a very important message which we are given. So let me check if there are any questions. Okay, one is it's not a question, observation. Very good. Yes, indeed, it was a wonderful interaction, sir. And from Sadhu, we have please recommend your favorite books. I think you have mentioned the Norwegian fiction, or it was.
हाँ, मेरे स्कैंडिनेवियन ऑथर्स है, पता नहीं यहाँ पर कितने लोग पढ़ते होंगे या नहीं. एंड आई थिंक ऑनेस्ट मैंने बहुत ज्यादा किताबें लास्ट 2-3-4 साल में इतनी नहीं पढ़ी हैं, बिकॉज आई बीन बिजी विद माय ओन राइटिंग एंड लॉट ऑफ दैट. सो एक डैनियल सिल्वा की किताबें मुझे बहुत अच्छी लगती हैं. सो इफ यू रियली लाइक वंडरफुल thriller, geopolitical thrillers, pick up a Daniel Silva book. All his books are really good.
Okay.
Strongly recommend. उसकी किताबें मुझे बहुत पसंद हैं. तो yeah. And मेरी किताब जरूर पढ़िए. I would can I pick my own book? Go for my book. Those who wait.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I have read Sir's book. Absolutely, I think you should read all the books written by Sir. Really, very interesting. And if you like reading such kind of genre thrillers and all, then they are not to be missed. It's coming from someone who has read a lot of suspense novels and thrillers. So just
that's true, Abhishek.
The one thing is left, which of course we can't do here. I have to get my book signed from you. So whenever we get a chance to meet, I will get the books definitely signed from you.
And I really look forward to that, Abhishek. And it's really a pleasure talking to you. और इसलिए भी मजा आया क्योंकि आपके questions were very informed. You know the subject very well. Obviously you know the ins and outs of this entire thing. So it's such a delight talking to you about so many aspects of writing. And I hope your viewers कुछ interesting उनको लगा हो हमारी conversation से.
Oh, absolutely.
So, yeah.
Same way, sir. Wonderful interacting with you, and all the best for your future books.
Thank you so much, Abhi.
Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. Have a good day. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Bye.